All right. Well, I am just going to get us started. If people continue to hop on, that'll be great. But I think all of you know me, but I'm Linda Golick. I'm the health and well-being consultant at Amplify Health by Bellin. And so happy that you're taking some time out today to focus on this topic with me. This has been a really great topic. The whole idea of escaping from reality. How do we cope when life overwhelms? And this topic really became important when we were planning a year ago. And I think today it's even more important because all of us probably have a million things going on. And it's very normal to feel like we need some coping mechanisms. And coping doesn't have to be unhealthy. There are healthy coping mechanisms, and then there are coping mechanisms that are maybe kind of borderline that sometimes help us, but then it's up to us to examine when does this maybe go over the line and become something that's affecting our health and well-being in a not so positive way. So looking forward to the discussion today, hoping all of you can participate. If you're comfortable, feel free to join in the chat with questions, comments. You can join and unmute yourself when we're discussing things. Would love to hear from you. And again, I just appreciate so much that all of you took the time today. So let's take a moment and just take a deep breath, kind of focus ourselves in, because I'm sure all of you are running from many things just like I am. And let's just enjoy this moment where we're taking some time for ourselves. So this, at the core of this topic, is really the stress element, right? So our lifestyle medicine service line, we focus on 6 different areas of well-being, and one of those areas is stress management. And many people carry stress quietly. And that can come out in a lot of different ways, but people have sleep struggles, and we're caregiving for people, maybe elderly people, young people. There's grief that happens. We're trying to keep up with work and family and all the responsibilities. And so when life does start to get overwhelming, it is natural. It is a human element for us to search for ways to get relief from that stress. Our bodies and our brains don't want to be under stress all the time, and therefore we look for coping mechanisms to help us manage that. So whatever you may identify as your coping mechanism today, I want you to know that you're human and that's normal. And so do not beat yourself up about it. We're here to merely bring awareness and explore and help all of us maybe do a little bit better in that realm. So one of the things that we do now, and that all of you can also stay kind of aware of, is we send out a survey before we develop the campaign, because we really want to hear from you, and we want to hear from people in our community and in our employers. What are you struggling with? What's going on? What do you want to learn about? Well, here's some of the things that we heard from our survey that we sent out. Things like, I thought everyone felt this exhausted. Someone said it started as medication after an injury, and then it kind of progressed from there. Somebody talked about how after losing someone, sleep became really difficult. And then they started to see the bad things that happened from lack of sleep. And then, just trying to keep up with everything, started drinking more coffee because of all the obligations and responsibilities. So those were just kind of some of the things that we heard from, to just kind of ground us in what we heard about this topic and where we decided to go with it. So let's talk about why we escape. Again, it's a really natural thing to want an escape. Well, it can be anything from grief. We want to get away from grief. That doesn't feel good. Toxic relationships, traumas that we've experienced, the stress of being a parent or even being a caregiver, and really the loss of hope. It doesn't feel good to be in a situation where we feel like we're just managing and we're not actually thriving. So humans seek relief. Escaping is not a weakness. It's actually our nervous system trying to survive. So when your body and your brain are under tremendous amounts of stress, your body is saying to you and your brain is saying to you, hey, I can't survive like this. This isn't working for me. All of my mechanisms, all of my bodily and brain functions are not ideal because I'm under this stress. And so we have to do something about that. We need to get away from this stress. Now, in caveman days, the stress was maybe a tiger chasing after you. Of course, in today's age, hopefully none of us are dealing with that, but we have other tigers. We have work obligations. We have kids asking us questions. We have spouses that need things from us. We have family members and full calendars. And so it's a different form of stress, but still perceived by the body and brain very much the same way. So here are some of the quiet coping habits. And so these might be some of the things that are going on with us that, again, things can be borderline. It may be a good, healthy coping mechanism, or it may go over the line for you. And what is true for one person may not be true for someone else. So for example, my husband has enjoyed running marathons. That's one of his coping habits. That works for him. His body performs in that way. He enjoys it. I will tell you all right now, you will probably never see Linda run a marathon. It just isn't a coping thing for me. I might exercise or run a little bit, but I'm never going to go that distance. But what are some of the quiet things that maybe are happening with us that we're not recognizing that these are the things we're actually doing to cope with whatever's going on? So things like the doom scrolling, and that gives our brains this hit of dopamine, and that keeps us going. That's what the marketers are trying to do. They're trying to keep us online so that we see more ads and they make more money. But it's a way of escape for us. Things like taking naps or long sleeping periods, shopping, nicotine, working out excessively. Again, it may not seem unhealthy at first, but is your body telling you that maybe it's a little bit too much? Things like withdrawal, where we're just withdrawing from the things that we used to do or that we used to have time for, that we used to enjoy, because that's just a way of coping. Or comfort eating. So normalizing stuff like this isn't bad for you in moderation, but when it becomes a survival tool or when it's done in excess, that's when it goes over the line. And when can coping become harder to manage? So these are some of the really down the road things that we really want to recognize. And if any of these things are going on with you today, really invite you to have a conversation with someone you trust, whether that be a medical professional or someone that you love. We also will have some resources at the end of this presentation to refer you to. But when does it go over the line? Well, maybe we've become dependent on sleep aids or alcohol, or the point of binge and blackout drinking, taking medication to manage. And sometimes we need medications. Medication isn't always a bad thing, but when does it become a dependency and it's a problem? Or people that have addictions may be relapsing with some of those addictions. So here is actually a quote from one of our lifesaver stories, just to show us how real this is and how this is happening right in our communities, right with the people that are alongside of us potentially, where someone shared on one of our surveys, I got to the point where I would drink every single night just to black out. And they went back to AA, welcomed them back, and they've been sober for 3 years. And I'll talk a little bit later about this, but my lifesaver story with this campaign is actually someone who has been sober for 11 years. And so if that's something that you are struggling with, there is help and there is great support in our community, and you are not alone in that struggle. So one of the things that we don't always talk about that I really wanted to address today is the impact of stress on sleep. So sleep is one of those things where we just think, oh, I'm going to cut that short. I don't need that much sleep. I need to stay up late to do this. I need to get up early to do that. And of course, that sometimes is the reality of life. But stress very much affects sleep in a lot of different ways. And when we are not getting proper sleep, that is when we start to see a lot of other health events. And there's a lot of research supporting the fact that people that don't get enough sleep are much more likely to have a cardiovascular event. They are much more likely to deal with anxiety and depression. So there's a lot of, big health issues that can go down the line. So what's going on here? Well, what stress does, and we talked about this a little bit, it activates our fight or flight response, and that really ramps up that nervous system. So if we were being chased by a tiger, we would need that. We would need that jump to happen. But because it's happening to us all the time on a regular basis, it can very much affect our sleep cycles. Well, what's going on there? Well, there's hormones that stay elevated. So when you're in a constant state of stress, there's a lot more cortisol and adrenaline that is pumping through your body. And that causes you to be more alert. But of course, being alert is not what we want when we want to get some sleep. So people have problems falling asleep. There's waking up in the middle of the night. The stress kind of keeps getting processed by your brain. And so your brain wakes you up in the middle of the night trying to figure that out. Your sleep is lighter. It's less restorative because, again, you're in that pressure cooker of stress in your body. Your nervous system are not relaxing. And also the racing thoughts at bedtime, if anyone has experienced that. So what also happens is that stress also disrupts the sleep stages. So if any of you have Fitbits, Apple Watches, there's all these great devices that can show you the cycles of your sleep, and you can kind of see the different things that are happening. I always like to look at mine, and I actually can tell even just by looking at it how I'm going to feel the next day, because I need a certain amount of that really deep sleep and not too much of the REM sleep, because that means I'm having crazy dreams. But what happens is that stress disrupts these cycles. It gets us out of those waves. And especially that REM sleep actually supports emotional regulation and memory. And then the deep sleep is really good for that actual physical recovery, the cleanup of cells, and those types of things that we need to clean up free radicals in our brains and all of those things that we're exposed to throughout the day. So then if we don't get good sleep, then what happens? Well, now we reduce our energy. We wake up and we're pushing the caffeine and we're just trying to get the things done. Your natural energy is going to suffer when you're not getting that proper sleep. And of course, the root of that, again, is the stress in the sleep. So now you have lower physical energy. So it affects all sorts of systems in your body, your muscle recovery, your immune function, hormone regulation, blood sugar stability. And blood sugar stability is so important for mood as well. If you've ever been kind of hangry, you know how that doesn't feel good with us because your blood sugar is low and it makes you really cranky. So all of these things lead to daytime fatigue and then slower performance. And then, of course, along with the physical things, it's the mental energy that suffers when we're not getting that good restorative sleep. So things like brain fog and inability to concentrate, and you have a harder time making decisions, and it's harder to have good memory when you don't have that sleep. And then that leads to emotional fatigue. So you're physically tired, your brain isn't working well. Now you are irritable, you're feeling overwhelmed more easily, and you have that heightened response to stress. So it is this vicious cycle. And you can see on this graphic, this is what happens. The stress, the sleep, the vicious cycle of our energy and the bad hormones rising and not being restored. And then we become cranky. We're more reactive to the things around us. And that's when we snap at people and all these things. And this is all because we have the stress that is keeping us from getting proper sleep. So I really wanted to validate that today, because I hear this a lot from people that they have problems sleeping. And as much as we can practice good sleep hygiene and all of those wonderful things, there's something to be said for that. But I really want all of you to just take a moment and really ask yourself, are you managing your stress accordingly? And if you're not managing your stress accordingly, today's the day to have that revelation and maybe take a small step towards doing that. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So how do we break that cycle? What are some things that we can do? Well, it's important to have some kind of a wind down routine, and it's important to limit those screens an hour before bed. I think one of our big disruptors that our body is actually seeing all of this content that we're taking in as a stressor. So even if you're watching like action shows at night, that kind of ramps up your brain and your body. So really limiting those screens before bed can make a huge difference. It is good to keep a consistent sleep schedule. That helps our bodies know when it's time to rise, when it's time to go to sleep. But are we doing any relaxation techniques? Are we doing anything to kind of calm ourselves down after the crazy day, after we've had a lot of stressors happening? Are we doing that? So if anyone is doing something they want to share, you want to put that in the chat. What are you doing to relax? What are you doing to help yourself settle down at the end of the day so that you can get more sleep? Oh, very nice, Jackie. A meditation. Fantastic. Yes, that's wonderful. Meditation is such an incredible tool and really resets that nervous system and tells our body to calm down. Reading. Yes, excellent, Amber. Reading is wonderful. And I think sometimes we forget about reading, and that can be very relaxing. And they say even just the eye movement of reading actually is part of what helps you feel sleepy. So, oh, good, Maria, going for a gratitude walk. Fantastic. And you'll see also on this checklist is part of it is managing the daytime stress. So taking those micro breaks to reduce the cortisol load. So giving your body the signal, like we're going to rest now. We're going to take a little break. We're going to go for a walk, calming music. Awesome. Awesome. Journaling, your husband and you do a plank for 1 minute with controlled breath work. Fantastic. Love that. Listening to sound baths for sleep. Beautiful, beautiful. Putting the phone down. Yeah, very important. Okay, good. Carrie just grabbed a new book. Fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing all that, you guys, and continue to think about that, right? Like, how do we give ourselves these breaks from these stressors? Because the less stress I think we're managing, I think the less coping mechanisms we may find ourselves needing. So I wanted to show this video. This is Dr. Tracy Marks, who's a psychiatrist. We're just going to watch this for a few minutes. She's going to explain a little bit more about what is going on in your brain when you're having emotional overload. And she'll also talk a little bit about how to help yourself. So we will watch this video. Should we? I really like that video. I put it in the chat so that you can watch the whole thing if you'd like to, because we don't quite have time. But I wanted to just kind of see if anyone had any reflections from that. Was that helpful? Did anything kind of stand out to you from that video? Feel free to put that in the chat or unmute yourself and share. As you're thinking about that and doing that, one of the things that she talked about at the end of the video was naming the emotion. And here's a really helpful tool that can help you kind of dig down a little bit and figure out what it is that you're experiencing. And then also just help that part of the brain that she was referring to, that once we're able to pause and name that emotion, it helps us calm down and sends a signal to the brain that is helpful. So you can see on this wheel, we often kind of go with those big emotions when something happens, like, whoa, this thing happened to me and it made me feel bad. Well, what is that really about? And then you can kind of work your way out on the outer options of the wheel to really find a little bit more of what was it that you were really experiencing in that particular situation. So if we take a look at this. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Okay, I just wanted all of you to think about a current situation that maybe you've had either personally or professionally, and to think about your initial reaction. And maybe it was one of those big emotions in there, whether it made you angry or it made you sad or you were really fearful about something. And then work your way out. What was that really about? What was the emotion that was actually happening? And again, it's just really helpful for us to name those emotions, validate ourselves, know that it's okay. We're humans. We are complicated beings, and we do have a lot of emotions, and they do cause us to react in different ways. And so this is an opportunity to just kind of reflect on that for a moment. So as we're wrapping up here today, again, this is what we heard from those of you that filled out the survey, from people that filled out the survey. Ask for help. Somebody talked about how therapy was super validating, that there was nothing wrong with me. So if you have resources to do that and you're feeling certain things, it's okay to reach out. And someone also said healing's not linear. Everyone copes at their own pace. So there's ups, there's downs, there's sideways. And even when people say they're okay, they may not be. So it's also important for us to notice the people around us. And when people start to act a little bit differently, to ask them and to reach out to them and see if they are okay. Also in our survey, when people did recognize the need for change, here were some of the turning points that they really thought helped them. So the therapy, the recovery groups, grief counselors, supportive friends, faith, mentors, those are all things that can be supportive. And yes, Jamie, I am happy to share these slides out with you. Absolutely. So here are some healthy coping skills. So here are some things that maybe we discount sometimes that can be helpful. So something as simple as eating a well-balanced meal helps us cope a little bit better because we're taking care of our body. Somebody said listening to music, writing a poem, having a good cry. Just having a good cry. And if you need to get that out, putting on a mushy movie or something to help stimulate those tears, that's a good, healthy release. Those practical things, like maybe we just need to make the bed every morning. Spending time in nature. Nature is extremely helpful and restorative to our bodies and our brains. So thinking about that. I just want to put a plug in for the podcast. So I did reference earlier, I had someone on my podcast that told their story of sobriety. Sarah Rosenberg, she really shared how she recognized that she was going down an unhealthy pathway and how she decided to make a change. And of course, that wasn't easy for her to do. But today, 11 and a half years later, she is just so grateful that she did, because she has totally turned her life around. She has an entirely different life than she would have had she chosen not to get sober. And we also have our mental health moments where myself and two of our behavioral health therapists had a great conversation about coping, how to recognize when it does become unhealthy for yourself, because of course we're all going to be different. So we want to learn that about ourselves and recognize when things are going awry. So local resources available. So thinking about what's available to you, whether it be your employee assistance program or other connections you have to mental health professionals. Our lifestyle medicine care service line helps people deal with their stress. There's good community health organizations in our area. So here's some of also the big ones in terms of nationally that you may be able to find some more information on. So the National Institute of Mental Health, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, we have NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the American Psychological Association, and the U.S. Surgeon General has a really great framework on what to pay attention to in mental health in your workplaces. So that might even be just a helpful guide for you as a workplace to look at. What are we doing? Are there areas that we can focus on to help our employees? So just some final reflection questions for us all. What helps you find relief when life feels overwhelming? What do you wish more people would understand about stress or coping? And what helps you feel supported during those difficult seasons? So really bringing this home to yourself. What works for you? How do you find relief? I recently started a paint by number project for a new way of stress relief for myself, because I'm not talented to paint something on my own, but the paint by number has actually been super fun to sit outside at night and paint. So searching for different ways, searching for different healthy ways to cope with our stress. We just continue to do that. And of course, I am here. You can reach out to me with any questions. There's a QR code there to my LinkedIn. You can follow some of my content. And there's my email, which I think all of you probably have, but please reach out if you have questions, concerns. And again, I just really thank all of you for taking the time today. If anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or put them in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Appreciate you all being here today. This was recorded. The link will be on the next Lifesaver newsletter as well. So you can feel free to share that with your coworkers, your family, your friends, whoever you think might benefit from this recording. It will be available as well. So thanks again for joining us. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. Take care, everybody.